Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Thriving Inside the Thin Blue Line podcast. I'm your host, Monica Crawford, author of the book Thriving Inside the Thin Blue Line, and also owner of 50 Fierce and Fit. Today we have Bernice on the podcast, which I am super excited to have and have her share her story and what she's doing. Without further ado, Bernice, I'll let you introduce yourself before I say too much. I'd rather you just tell it.
This is always weird for me. Where do I even start, Um, so I guess I'm gonna do it a little different this time, but it's been 5 years since I stepped down from being a police officer, and I did the job for 5 years. In fact, I always say just enough for me to get vested. So I did the job for 5 years, and I was not expecting for my career to be that short. I uh, I definitely knew like when I first started working there, I knew the culture was not gonna be for me forever. I enjoy the job. I enjoyed helping actual victims. I enjoy helping people that actually needed my help. I really enjoyed connecting with the Hispanic community because I was born and raised in Mexico, and I lived out there until I was 15, and that's when my family came over to the US. So I had to learn the language. I think when I moved here, I knew my numbers and my ABCs, and that's it. So I knew what it was like to have that language barrier, and when I started doing the job, I started thinking like I can't imagine like having that language barrier and being in a emergency situation and not know what to do. And then also where I come from, you don't call the cops for anything, you just kind of figure it out. Like you stick to your neighbors and your friends and your family, and we all kind of help each other out. So then I started connecting even more to the Hispanic community because I wanted to educate them. I wanted to let them know over here, at least for the city that I work for in the department that I work for, over here, when you call, we're actually there to help you. And there was a lot of things that they didn't understand, like, well, why do you guys always look so serious? Or why do you guys always get here and start giving us, like, you know, um, orders and stuff? And then I will take the time to explain to them, listen, when we come into a call, when we call into an emergency, we don't know what we're walking into. We don't know if you actually need help. We don't know if you're trying to ambush us. We don't know what's going on. So when we get there, we're going to look a certain way because we're trying to figure out what's going on, right? We're trying to figure out the scene. And not only that, we're trying to make sure that it's safe for us to slow it down, and then you'll get the smiles, and then you get the regular conversations, and then you start getting to know us. So I took a lot of pride in being able to go to these trainings and like educate the community, and just for them to like understand is a little different over here. um so again, it was a career that I really enjoyed. I knew very early on I couldn't do it forever because of the culture inside the building, and the mind games, and the egos and the whole control aspect of things. I knew that wasn't me. And I remember thinking, I can't play these games. First of all, I refuse to. If I have to be an officer for the rest of my career, then so be it. If I'm never going to promote because I don't want to kiss someone's ring, then so be it. For me, because I have such a rich culture where I come from, and I lived in a different country for so many years. For me, it was more of my parents didn't take the time to teach me morals and values and teach me how to stand up for myself and how to do stuff for myself. For me to come to this country legally, like everything we went through for them to be able to move my family over here, we didn't do all of that. I wasn't raised that way for me to be treated like shit and for me to jeopardize who I am I refuse to jeopardize my values. I refuse to become what they wanted me to become, you know? Um, the egotistic aspect of the job was a shock to me. I remember thinking, hey, I remember thinking, why are they like this? Like, why do they need so much recognition? And like, I kept seeing it, and I saw it more in males at the time, because at the time my department didn't have a lot of females. I'm like, these are grown ass men. Like, why do you guys like rely on this badge to make yourself feel important? So I started questioning the, I guess, psychological aspect of the career very early on. And I refused to be part of it. I started to realize, oh, okay, you have to be nice to so and so if you want to get to this department. You have to kiss so and so's ring if you want to be part of this. Okay. They want me to have command presence. They want me to be tough. They want me to look a certain way. But when I have the same character, when I have the same personality with them, then it's offensive. Then there's something wrong with me. Then I'm a brat. Then I'm all these things. So a lot of things didn't make sense to me very early on. So I knew I couldn't do the job forever. I just wasn't ready to step down. I wasn't ready to step down because I was still enjoying the job. I was enjoying what I was actually doing, what I was learning. Um, I was at that stage where like you're, and they tell you, if you have a good training officer, they tell you, around year 3 or so, you start figuring out what kind of cop you want to be and what you want to get yourself into, what you're interested in, what you're not interested in. So I was at that sweet spot. And I was at that spot where I was starting to put in for things, and I was starting to get involved in like extra, assignments and that kind of stuff. So I was at a really good spot. Um, I just, the culture was a shock for me. I wasn't expecting that. Definitely not expecting it from like a career, a field that at some point like thought very high of. Um, and now that I've gone through my healing journey, is like, you guys are damaged people. Like, you guys are very damaged. Like, all of this stuff is psychological, you know? Why can't you guys do the work? Why can't you figure out where your need of for validation, your need for power, your need for all these things, why can't you figure out where it comes from? Um, so yeah, I ended up just doing 5 years. I feel like I did things out of order. I usually like start this whole like I was born and da da da, but I don't know. For some reason today I just went straight into it. Um, I think it's because it's been really heavy on my mind lately. Um, I I posted a reel about, it's gonna be 3 months now, about my actual experience and my actual thoughts of law enforcement. And little did I know I was gonna go viral. Um, I was not expecting that. I was actually expecting a lot of disgruntled comments and, a lot of retired people talking crap. And to my surprise, it was the opposite. I started getting a lot of messages of I could only do the job for 20 years. My plan was to retire. I couldn't stick it through. Everything you said was spot on. Um, I just stepped down from 35 years, 30 years. Like, I started hearing from all these guys that I thought were going to crucify me, Um, and lately it's been heavy on my mind because I've been hearing a lot of stuff from the department that I work for, and they're not really happy. So it's just one of those things like, you share your story and you share your truth, but because you do, all of a sudden you're playing victim. All of a sudden you're complaining. All of a sudden you're just another female. And this is why females shouldn't be in law enforcement. I'm sorry, but no, but I don't see any guys. I don't see a lot of guys sharing the truth. You know?
Yeah.
So because I share my truth, because I share my story. And I was still very, and I'm still very careful how much I share. To this day, I haven't dropped names. To this day, I haven't spoken specifics. I haven't spoken details. To this day, I don't name the department. People just figure out who I work with because of my photos. And even so, I try to cover them the best I could. So for people to be so offended by it, it's like, okay, then in a sense, it almost validated me. And then your book. Oh my gosh, your book. Yeah. Your book was insane to me. There's a paragraph, and I think yeah, I marked it. There's a paragraph where you're describing basically my HR investigation from start to finish. And I'm sitting here like crying and surprised and like wondering like what the hell is happening. This is a woman I've never met in my life. This is a woman that lives in a different state as me, had a completely different experience than me, similar in some things, but she's literally describing exactly what they did with my investigation from start to finish. How? How does she know? Um, your book was amazing. I couldn't put it down. I think I told you, you said something like, "Oh, people say they can read it in 2 to 3 days,"
Yeah.
and I was like crying and everything. I was like, "Yes, it's been 2 days and I'm done with it." Yeah, but your book was crazy. It was a lot of validation that thankfully I didn't feel like I needed anymore because I did I did all that work, but it was a very um it was nice to have it. It was nice to read that I'm not the only one that question things. And then you do a really good job about actually putting names to things. Um, the gaslighting is that yeah, I think that's one of them. I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's true. That's exactly what happened." Like I could never put a name to things, you know? I could never just call it something. Um, but you actually like broke it down and you broke it down from like actual definition, the definition of things. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened." Excuse me.
Yeah, that was a big piece when I was, even before I think I thought about writing the book, it was putting a name to essentially what the emotional abuse was that
Mhm.
validated me. And specifically, and I put this in the book, I think, of when I figured out what trauma bonding was.
Uh-huh.
I found that online one night, and I don't remember how I came across it. I was searching something, but I started reading that process, and like tears just started coming down my face because it was like, this explains everything. Like, I'm not crazy. Like, this is legitimate emotional abuse. And I think sometimes perhaps I assume, I haven't heard this yet, that the book may get some pushback because I'm talking about law enforcement and emotional abuse in the same book title. And I'm sure it's like nails on a chalkboard type response. And people are like, what the hell? That doesn't happen here.
Yeah.
Oh, but wait. Um, like once you get further into it, uh,
Mhm.
you're like, yes, this makes more sense. And also in the sense too, it's like these terms are more tip, and we see it too from a cop perspective because this explains domestic violence, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the relational shit that we dealt with all the time of, well,
Cycle.
why don't they break up? Like, why doesn't so and so leave this relationship? Why are we back at the same house? Well, it explains the emotional and psychological side of why we stay in toxic situations when even though we know it's not a good situation for us.
Yeah.
There's like that breadcrumbing process that's like, oh well, it's gonna get better. It's that's probably the loop that most people get stuck in is it'll change. It's gonna get better. You just gotta wait. You just gotta be patient. Because
Mhm.
even I had coworkers at a previous job when I worked in probation and parole saying the same thing. Things are always changing. Things are always changing. It's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. Okay, well, I don't want to spend 25 years of my life waiting for this shit to get better when I'm miserable.
Yeah. 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 I even try to get away. I completely switched my schedule. I went to a different shift. I went to a different schedule to get away because that was my attempt. And I tried for 2 years, 2 years until it absolutely broke me. And I didn't know that it was breaking me. Um, I didn't ask to step down. I didn't quit. I didn't. It was very strange. Not strange. Now I know it's the way it was supposed to play out, but I happened to switch my insurances and my health insurance, and I went to meet my new doctor. And it was during COVID, I remember, because I was wearing a mask, and I was fresh out of a graveyard shift, and I show up all sleepy or whatever, and she's like, introduces herself and everything, and then she looks at me and she's like, I'll be right back, and she stepped out, and I'm frustrated. I'm like, girl, hurry up. I'm trying to go back to sleep, just do my blood work. Um, so then she comes in and she gives me these questionnaires, and she goes, I'm gonna step out. I'm just gonna have you fill them out, and I'll be right back. So I'm even more frustrated. I'm like, girl, like, I'm not here to fill out questionnaires. Just do your thing. I'm trying to go back to sleep. So then I look at the questionnaires and I start reading the questions, and I got very upset. I was very offended because they were mental health questionnaires. And at the time, I had gone to a training, and I on Sundays I used to have a clinician ride with me, and we only responded to mental health related calls all Sunday. That was my whole shift, like the whole 12 hours, 5150s, that kind of stuff, right? So I recognized the questions and I was very upset. I was like, why is this woman giving this to me? Like, I'm the one who goes and gives out these questionnaires. I'm the one that's always asking these questions on patrol. So I was very upset, but I got it done because I was trying to go back to sleep. So I start reading the questions and I start answering them, and next thing I know, I'm just sobbing. I'm just sobbing, and I couldn't control it. And I was like, what is going on with me? Like, what is happening? So she comes back in, and she finds me crying, and she she just looked at me and she's like, I thought so. And I said, excuse me? And she's like, what do you do again for a living? And I said, I'm a cop. And she told me, she's like, how in the world have you been doing this job? And why hasn't anyone been concerned about you? And I still don't know what she's talking about. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, honey, you've been clinically depressed for at least 8 months. And I said, what? I'm pissed. I'm like, I just met you, woman? And she's like, when you came in, she's like, I could tell you've always been like a petite frame. You've always been small. And I was like, yeah. And she's like, but there was something about the thinness of your arms. There was just something, and the color of your face. And I told her, I was like, I'm wearing a mask. Like, you can't even see half of my face. I'm still mad. And she's like, no, there was just something to you. And she's like, that's why I stepped out and I brought in the questionnaires. That woman saved my life. That woman saved my life. She said, I'm sorry, but you cannot go back to work. You have to be out of work for 2 months at least. So then the fear comes in. What are they going to say? What are they going to do? I've been dodging bullets, within the department for 2 years already. I've been running away from supervisors. They're already on my back. Now all of a sudden, I have a slip of a doctor that's putting me out for 2 months. Like, this is it. Like, what are they going to say? What are they going to think? And I left there scared of them at the police department, what they were going to do with it. I left scared. And then on top of that, this is over mental health related stuff. Like, what? So she refers me to psychiatry and the whole thing. And they're like, yeah, like, you're at the point where you should have been on medication for a very long time. Like, they couldn't understand how I was still doing the job. They couldn't understand how no one saw red flags and no one thought anything. And in fact, at that moment, I remember two good friends of mine. One of them had told me, he's like, hey, he's like, you're looking a little thin. And I'm like, oh, that's just been me. I've always been small. Like, my weight always fluctuates. And he was like, no. He's like, you're just looking a little thin. And then I had another friend ask me, hey, are you okay? I said, yeah. He's like, I've noticed you're the last one to come in roll call, and you're the first one to leave. Like, you don't want to be here.
That was
And
me. That was frickin' me. I was
yeah,
pissed going in there because I was like, I don't want to deal with you fuckers for more than I have to sit and stare at you for 15 minutes in squad meeting.
exactly. So he said that to me, but I didn't want people to know what I was going through, what I was experiencing, because I didn't want to get anyone involved. Like they tell you very early on, you get yourself into an IA, don't get people involved. Even, they tell you that. Don't get people involved. Don't be surprised if they don't talk to you after they had to go interview for your IA. So, um, and then someone else had told me something. So I was losing my hair. Like, my sides were like completely like almost like bald, and so there was a lot of things that people were noticing, but none of my supervisors, none of the people that should have noticed anything. And if they did, they probably didn't care. And at the time, I had really good supervisors. But again, I wasn't talking about what I was going through. I was just trying to deal with it myself. I was changing my hours. I was dodging the supervisors. If I will see someone walking one way, I will go another way. It was just constant need for survival inside of the building, you know? And that's the sad part. You're already like super hyper vigilant when you're out there, when you're driving, you're paying attention, you're just like have this mentality everyone's out to get you. You come in the building and it should be a moment of I'm safe now. I made it back, gotta finish my reports, gotta finish whatever, and I get to go home. But it was the opposite for me. I was like, here we go. Like, what are they gonna call me into the office about now? What little mistake did I make that they're going to try to portray me to be a lazy cop, unexperienced cop? Like, what little tiny thing I said today that they're going to flip into something else? And it was one sergeant, and it was a female, sadly, and it was a Hispanic female, sadly, too. Um, and I hurt her ego her very first day as sergeant. Acting sergeant, because my department started doing this weird thing of promoting people before they were legitimately promoted. And they started calling them acting sergeant. And I remember when I heard that term, I was like, okay, when we get hired, we go to the academy. We don't become officers until we get out of field training. So were we supposed to be acting officers? Like, why are they doing these acting supervisor roles? So they will send them out there for 6 months as acting sergeants, acting agents, acting lieutenants. But we all knew they were gonna get the promotion anyway. It was just weird, shady ass thing they started doing. So she comes over my shift for her first day as acting sergeant, and she decides she has an opinion on me, and she decides that she's right about it. So she goes to my canine officer, and she tries to talk to my canine officer. And he tries to clear it up with her, like, no, Bernice is not like that. Well, what are you talking about? I've been working for her for a while, with her for a while. She wasn't trying to avoid the call. She wasn't trying to avoid going in the house. She wasn't trying to do all these things. And she's adamant. No, she was doing this, she was doing that. And he's like, I've worked with her. That is not what happened. Nope. She had this idea of me. And of course, she can be wrong, right? So from then on, it was on. It was on. And I remember I still try to call her the next day. I try to call her the next day and I try to clear it up because I knew, and this is the sad part. How is it that we know? And how is it that we're told in training, don't upset anybody, don't look at anybody the wrong way, don't say the wrong thing, because if they don't like you, that's it. It's never gonna stop. But at the same time, like, no, 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 this doesn't happen in law enforcement. Like, what do you mean? Yes, it's so common that you're told these things in field training. They tell you these things. Some of these things they tell you since the academy, but we don't have a damage culture. We don't have an abusive culture. We don't have an egotistic culture. We don't have bad leadership. So if we don't have all of that, why are we being warned about these things so early on? So, because of that advice that I did get early on of don't piss off anybody, I called her the next day and I tried to clear it up. It was worse. I ended up getting yelled at. I ended up being told that I was lazy. I ended up being told that I was unsafe and all these things. And I did make mistakes. I own them. I made mistakes. But it was not the way she was portraying it. And ever since then, it was her goal to make me look a certain way. It was her goal to almost prove herself that I was avoiding work, that I was lazy, that I was milking calls, that I was staying on calls because I didn't want to do something else. This went on for 2 years. Now, granted, all of my actual assigned sergeants didn't have a problem with me. Did not have a problem with me. 3 years on, and I never had a sergeant have a problem with me, a lieutenant have a problem with me, and then all of a sudden, this woman comes in, acting like a sergeant, because that's really what it is. Um, Her ego gets hurt, and all of a sudden, Bernice is all these things. Um, Long story short, at the end of it, I ended up having two other supervisors on my back that happened to be her friend. Um, but then again, they didn't conspire against me or anything. It just happened, right? They just happened to be friends. But and that's when I started. My mental health just started declining, and I didn't really know what was happening. I just knew I hated going into work. I knew I was driving into work as if I was brand new. I was nervous. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, I wonder if I'm going to get myself into a fight today. It was more of like, I wonder what they're going to do to me now. I wonder what they're going to pick on. I wonder if I'm going to get called into the sergeant's office again. It was all of these internal things that I was worried about. And there was times that I will drive to work crying as if I was a brand new officer. Um, I remember I used to work weekends, so my days off will start on Monday. So Monday will come along and I was like, all right, I survived another week. Tuesday was like, all right, okay, it's my days off and I will be all happy. And then Wednesday, the anxiety. Now I know it was anxiety. I didn't know that's what it was. Anxiety will start creeping in. Thursday, I couldn't sleep. And then Friday, I was just show up absolutely drained, um, scared, um, like constantly like watching my back, inside the building. um, and that's how it was for a long time. And so I knew that was happening. I knew I was getting nervous going into work, and that's what I used to call it. I'm just nervous. But, you know, after getting diagnosed and everything and going through the healing process, I had full on anxiety and I didn't even know. I mean, God, I was depressed and I didn't even know. And I was still doing the job, and I say that doctor saved my life because you go into this career and there's no quitting. There's no giving up. You're tough, you know. You have to be there for your beat partners. You have to, and I went through that guilt when I stepped down. She put me out of work for 2 months, then it turned into 4 months, and it turned into 6 months. And at that point I decided, workers comp needs to get involved in this and let's see how far I can go. And then next thing I knew, I was like, there's no way I can go back. In fact, a workers comp doctor stated on his report that I couldn't go back to that department. So that took care of itself. But I knew and they tell you this too, I knew I had committed career suicide. I knew that by the time I spoke up and I went to HR and I told them I've been going through this for 2 years, like I knew there was no promotion for me. There was nothing. There was absolutely nothing. Um, I knew that my my board turned their back on me, because they're only there for you if you're being sued. They're not there for you if you're the victim. If you're the victim, then why do you care? You know, your dues don't pay for that. They pay for other things. Uh, I had two members of the board. One of them that actually someone represented me because he was getting a lot of heat, but he was there for me. He sat through all my HR interviews. He supported me the best he could, the best that will let him. But at the time, the president of the board just straight up told him, "Why do you care? Why do you care to help her?" And he's like, uh, we're the POA? Like, we're the board? What do you mean? Like, we're here for the officers. Just let it go. What do you care? You should be representing the supervisors that she's speaking against. That's the people you should be representing. That's what he was told by the president of the board. Yeah. And at some point, command staff was upset that he was helping me, supporting me, really, because there was not much, there was no instructions, there was no, I was lost in the whole process. Now I find out 5 years later that I had access to my POA lawyer. I didn't know that I even could have had a PORAC lawyer be there for me and sit there through my HR interviews. I didn't know that. Nobody told me that. Um so um he would just go and sit with me and support me whichever way he could, and he was told by the captain, because the chief sent a captain to sit in the HR interviews. I didn't know he didn't have to be there. He just sat through every HR interview. And the my HR rep was actually, he was doing a really good job. He was brand new to the city, so he was actually doing his job. He wasn't involved in the drama because the city is a whole nother mess. Um, he was actually doing a good job, and all of a sudden we have this captain sitting in at all my interviews, and I didn't know he didn't have to be there. He was just basically sitting in to report back to the chief, and figure out what they were going to do with me and how they were going to handle the situation. And the captain told my POA rep, like, same thing. He's like, "What? Why are you helping her? Like, you should be helping the others." And he told him, "Are you sleeping with her, or are you trying to sleep with her? Is that why you're helping her? Are you trying to get with Bernice? Is that why you're helping her?" And so there was a lot of people upset that he was supporting me. But then again, bad leadership is not true, right? I'm just a victim now. I'm just bitter now. That's why I'm speaking on it. I'm a female. I have this victim mentality. None of that happens, right? Um, so it was a long process. It was a shitty process. It was a very corrupt process, um, altogether. The police department, HR, workers' comp. It was a mess. And going through this process made me realize, like, how bad it really is at every single department, every single stage after you speak up. It's a mafia in there. I'm sorry, like, I can't call it anything else. It's a mafia in there. They look out for each other. Um, the policies work for them. The policies are written in a way where they're there to protect them, not so much the officers. Um, and when you go asking for something, oh, we don't have a policy for that. Oh, there's no policy for that. Oh no, you can't get a copy of your investigation. Well, why? We just don't do that. Okay, but why? We don't do that. What policy states that? We don't have a policy for that,
Good, so you can hand it over.
right? You will think. Um,
I know we mentioned that before, but that's the one thing that baffles me because that was the same thing with me. No, you can't take the complaint against you out of this office. That happened to me. That happened to a female EMS. Client of mine, same thing. Even in EMS, it was a supervisor target type thing. They wouldn't let her take her complaint against her out of the office. I don't understand that. It's like like saying you don't get an arraignment in court. Like an arraignment in court is to
Yeah.
notify you of the charges against you. And in a law enforcement setting, they're like, nope, we're just going to keep this behind closed doors, but know that you're in trouble.
Yeah, but you know what I realized? Who checks them? There's no checks and balances. The city is there to protect them. HR is a joke. At the end of the day, there's just a check mark for the state to say that there's an HR department. HR is not there. There's nothing human about human resources. I'm sorry, but there's not. They're not there for you. They're employed by your employer. They're not there for the employees. Same thing with workers' comp. Workers' comp is at the end of the day going to do what the city tells them and the city lawyer tells them to do. They're going to roll that dice and they're going to see how far they can go. And they're going to spend a lot of money to make sure that you look like you're telling lies. They'll rather spend money on that than just give you a retirement, than just giving you whatever you're entitled to, right? But who checks them? Who do you call? They don't care. They're all in it together. Who appoints the chief? The mayor.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no balances for them at all.
It probably, I would assume, takes some sort of outside attorney that can come back and then it has to go the legal route because you have somebody who's educated enough to handle the situation and go, no, that's not right. That's not right. No, let's do this because
Yeah.
we're gonna fight for you. Like you unfortunately a lot of times probably have to pay out of your own pocket to defend yourself.
Hmm.
And most times we're not in a place to do that.
Uh,
Um,
and
and
that's the thing. Why are we handling these investigations internally? Shouldn't a third party be doing this? Like, how biased is that?
yeah.
Of course, you're going to rule in whichever favor you want. Of course, you're going to protect whoever you want to protect. Like, you have the power to do that. Why is it that we're dealing with these investigations internally? Why isn't there a third party that's unbiased doing this stuff? But who's going to tell them that? Who's going to force them to do that?
Right. It's unfortunate. It breaks my heart for you to know that we've experienced a lot of the same things.
Hmm.
And so glad that you had that pivotal moment with the doctor that was able to literally change the trajectory of your life to where you could
Yeah.
shift gears and focus back in on you and maybe hold up that big red flag of like, look what's actually going on in your body of all of these environmental things you know that have been there, but here's the breaking point. Like, here's where things have to change. And for you too, since you've gotten out, you mentioned about that reel going viral. I would love for you to tell people about your business and how this whole journey has affected your business and where you are in life now.
So, when I stepped down and I went through a lot of stages, the whole 2 months that she put me out at first, I was in denial. I was heavily in denial. I am not depressed. This is not happening to me. Like, not me. This, nope. So, those 2 months I was on medication. I was in denial. I was just going through the motions at the time, and then the embarrassment came in of what are they gonna think is going around. Bernice stepped down because of mental health. Like how embarrassing. Um, so then I went through a lot of embarrassment, and then I disappeared from social media. Whoever, contacted me and were there for me, great. If not, I would just disappear. Like, I wouldn't get out of my house. Um, and then came a lot of anger when I finally accepted that, okay, I am going through a depression. The fact that I want to sleep all day, the fact that I want to be in my room all day, the fact that I don't care to do my hair, take a shower. Okay, like, this is serious. I'm going through a depression and I can't control it. I still thought that I could control it. Um, but the anger came. I was really angry at them for acting the way they did. I was really angry at them for not leaving me alone, because they were still not leaving me alone when I was trying to come out of it, you know. The HR emails were still there, the phone calls were still there, and the anxiety I will get when they will call, when they will send an email, and I had this anxiety that I had to get back to them right away. I was scared, because that's what they tell you. You get an email, you answer it right away. You get a phone call, you call them back right away. You get a text. So I was like, I was still going through all of that, and then 6 months in, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna be on freaking medication forever. This is not doing anything. It's just numbing me. But that's when I decided that I had to dig. I had to dig within myself. I had to go do the work in therapy. I had to figure out the why of everything. That's when I started doing the tough work. Um, and that's when I started healing and I started accepting my reality and what was happening to me. Um, for a year and a half, 2 years. There's 2 to 3 years after I stepped down of my life that it's a blur. It's a complete blur. I don't remember a lot of things. I just remember focusing on the good days. I just don't remember a lot of things. Um, then one day, my husband and I went he convinced me to go to the grocery store because I wouldn't leave my house. And there was a gym across the street from the grocery store. And he's like, Let's go check it out." He's like, "How about you just start working out again?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever." So I went and we talked to one of the employees, and my husband was like, "I think you should like call the owner and see, find out more details." So I call. To my surprise, she called me back the next day, and she was the first person I said out loud that I had depression, because I still couldn't do it. I still couldn't say it. Um, and she's like, "Don't worry." She's like, "Don't worry. Just come in for one session. You don't have to talk to anybody. We're gonna tell you what to do." They were like personal trainers, so I would just show up and they would tell me what to do. They would even change my weights, everything, right? And I loved it. So then I started really getting into training, and I started training, and I started to realize what my body was capable of. And that's when the healing started. That's when the healing started. That's when I started feeling alive. And when I was working patrol, I was getting ready for range training the next day, and I wanted to wear a shirt or something that represented law enforcement, but without screaming law enforcement, because I had to drive to the range, right? And I went online and I couldn't find anything. Everything was so manly. It was like nothing wrong with it, but it just was not my style. And then I had this idea. I was like, maybe I should start designing like law enforcement, first responder logos for females that are a little bit more discreet or whatever. And I got myself a little sketchbook and I just started writing ideas on my days off. And then I put it away because I was still working. So then one day I come back from the gym and I just started to do spring cleaning in my house because I had nothing else to do. And I came across the sketchbook. And I still remember where I was at in my house. I still remember I grabbed it and I just sat down on the carpet and I just started crying. I started crying because all of a sudden it made sense. That idea that was placed in my head 3 years prior was meant for something else, right? So I started crying and I started playing with the idea. At the time, my best friend had just opened a clothing boutique, so she knew all the business aspect of it and all that stuff, which I'm still trying to figure out. And I started talking to her, and I started reaching out to manufacturers, and I started playing with the logos and all this stuff, and I just went for it. I registered an LLC, and I said, "Let's see what comes of this," and um, next thing I knew, I get a sample t-shirt in the mail and I couldn't believe it that I created that. Like I put that together. And there's like you work in law enforcement and you work with males so much. At some point you start acting like a dude, you start talking like one. Um, there's that feminine aspect that kind of gets lost, a little bit. Um, So I lost my creativity. I was always very creative since I was very young, since I was very little. I was always drawing, I was always doing something. And I lost my creativity when I was a cop. And nothing wrong with that. I was aware of it, you know. But when I decided to register the business, I thought I couldn't do it anymore because there was that side of me that didn't exist anymore, so I thought. So the more I started creating things, the more ideas I started getting. I started learning how to do my own stuff. I started, you know, this growth just started happening, and I started, selling stuff. I created the Instagram, and it was just friends and family. I remember I had like 30 followers. It was just people that knew me, and I was taking orders over DMs, and I was, getting Venmo payments and that kind of stuff. And I decided to call it my healing project because it literally brought me back to life. I was getting up and all of a sudden I had a purpose. I had something to do other than cleaning the house and cooking and all this stuff, right? So, it gave me a purpose and I started getting more and more involved in it. And it was rough because it was around the time that it was after the riots and all that stuff. During the riots, I was still working, and then I stepped down shortly after that. So I started my business in a very shaky time, Um, a lot of friends wouldn't support me, wouldn't follow me because I represented law enforcement. A lot of friends didn't follow me or support me because they didn't want people to know they were law enforcement. So I started at a very weird time, and I just kept at it. I kept at it, and I called it my healing journey, and it was my project, and I called it my project. And next thing I knew, I'm connecting with all these women. I'm connecting with all these law enforcement wives. I found myself as a law enforcement wife. I married my husband. He's still a cop. He still works for the department I stepped down from. Um, and so I'm telling you, your book was like, oh my gosh, like she's also, married to, someone she met at work and all this stuff. And
Who also stayed after I left.
yeah, uh, but they don't them. I think at this point they're smarter than that. Um, but yeah, next thing I knew, I I found the need to create a website. I was no longer able to take orders over DMs, and I'm learning about coding and all this stuff. And I was like, who am I right now? Like, I was the girl that if my computer didn't work for whatever reason, I would just turn it off and turn it back on. Like, that's as techie as I got. And next thing I knew, I'm building a website. I'm learning about coding and all this stuff and, business things. And it's just, I kept at it. I kept at it. And after this video went viral, I started to connect to a different side of this community. And the amount of messages that I got from other officers, hey, I'm sending you a DM because I can't comment because my department might see it. Or, hey, I started being asked, hey, do you mind doing a FaceTime with me? I just want to talk to you. I was on FaceTime with a girl for like 3 hours, and she's like, I thought it was just me. I thought I was crazy. They always make me feel I was crazy. They made me feel like a victim. And she's like, and then I saw your reel that my friend sent to me, and I feel validated now. So, it made me realize, and I always said this when I started the business, it's never been about numbers for me. It's never been about numbers. It's always been about community for me. And like I said, I found myself connecting to the law enforcement wives that I could never connect to before because I was a cop. They look at you a little different when you're a cop. Um, and I started building and being part of this amazing community on social media. And then I saw this switch. I saw the women being tired of saying that they're married to a cop, the being tired of not being able to represent who they are, what their family represents. And I started seeing this little revolution of, yes, I'm a law enforcement family, so it was really awesome to kind of stick with it and see the shift. And now I'm starting to see the shift of mental health, and I saw that and more people talking about mental health. And now I'm starting to see the shift of so many former officers saying, yes, this stuff happens. Yes, I saw a video of this guy, and apparently he's really big on social media. He has a podcast, and there's a clip on his video that says more officers are committing suicide because they don't want to wake up in the morning and they don't want to go to work and see your fucking face. And he literally says it like that. And I was like, here's a guy saying the same exact thing I said on my reel, right? And he's this super tactical guy, super strong guy, and that's what you think, when you think of a cop. And he's saying the same thing I just said. So now I'm starting to see the shift of more people being honest about it, and police departments don't know what to do with it right now. They don't know what to do with it because for the first time, they're being called out of the culture and what really happens inside the building. They don't know what to do with it. Um, so it's been nice to kind of use my business as a community, but also a business, and like it's growing so much. I think I was telling you before we started the recording, like it's gotten to the point where I have to set office hours because I can't keep up with the home life and the work. So it's been pretty awesome. I've gotten to work with police departments. Ironically, the police department that I stepped down from, because I still have a lot of friends. I did all their merge for the K9 team. I did all the merge for the gang team, and I'm working on two other units right now. So it's been nice to be able to stay linked to law enforcement. I still represent law enforcement. I still support law enforcement. I just don't support bad leadership, and I'm no longer staying quiet about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And I was told very early on when I started the business, you shouldn't mix what do they say? Politics and religion with your business because, it's a business. And then I thought, it's my freaking platform. I'm gonna make it whatever the hell I want to be. This is the beauty about not working for anybody. And next thing I know, I have a collection that is all faith-based. I have a collection that is all politics, and people are starting to see like I'm not just a Etsy shop, there's a girl behind all of that. And I'm starting to be more comfortable about sharing more and more about my personal experiences. Just recently, I openly share that I am a stepmom, and I have gone through a lot of shitty situations as a stepmom, and it's a very tough position to be in when you don't have a sane and gathered, uh, parent on the other side. Um, and I started connecting with more females that are going through the same thing just because I'm being honest about my experience. I'm not complaining, and I don't really care who thinks that I'm complaining. I'm not complaining, I'm just being real. And that's been tied to my business because that's what I decided to create. So,
Yes. I love the authenticity part of it too, and I think that was a big part of my own journey of losing myself within the police department and then finding myself again afterwards because there's a couple different analogies that I use of them trying to keep me in a box or feeling like I was fighting my way out of a paper bag, essentially. It's like this useless fight that you
yeah,
just have to crawl out of. And yeah, I love the authenticity part of it as far as you're like, no, fuck it. If I wanna throw faith on there, fine. If I want to throw religion on there, fine. You get in the weeds of worrying more of what's gonna piss other people off instead of attracting the right people to you. So it's
yes,
like a glass half full, glass half empty type analogy of like, I'd rather bring my people to me, and if you're not my people, then you're not my people. It's fine.
yeah,
You don't have to be mad about it. Like it is what it is. Like nobody
yeah,
loves everybody on this earth, and like that's just how it is.
yeah,
So you've hit on two of my three credos here, and I think I have a good question to wrap this up here. You're one decision away from a totally different life. So for you, I think that was your decision to heal. It was
Yeah.
messy. It was tough. It's a never-ending process. I'm still working through my own healing journey.
Mm-hmm.
But your decision to get back into the gym and try to get back out into public again I mean, just for where you were. And
Mm-hmm.
even you just talking about it, like there was a time I went through too that I was super isolated at home that I didn't want to shower. And I realized I had gone a week. I was like, I haven't been in the shower in a week. Could be problematic. Um, yeah, so I've been through that phase too as well.
Yeah.
Um, but your decision to heal um, is what really turned things around for you. And as a
Mm-hmm.
part of that, we rise by lifting others, but first we must lift ourselves. And I think
Mm-hmm.
your creativity process was how you found your own joy of
Mm-hmm.
lifting yourself first, because now it's become a really cool and joyful thing for other people too, who identify with your story and love your merch and love what you do. And it becomes easy to support you and who you are because of your journey and what you stand for.
Yeah.
So let's wrap up with this. What does it mean to you to thrive inside of the thin blue line? And you can interpret that however you feel in life or career or in law enforcement or whatever that means to you.
I think if you would have asked me that when I was still a cop, I wouldn't have had an answer. I was definitely not thriving. I was lost. Um, I was lost. I felt watched all the time. So I definitely didn't get to the point where I got to thrive when I was still wearing the uniform. Um, Thriving now for me as part of uh the Thin Blue Line family is just being honest, being authentic. Um, for me, thriving is being able to create a community more than anything because there's just so much that goes on. Now that I'm on the wife side of things, this side sucks. It really sucks. I'm sorry, but this side of, of law enforcement sucks. Um, Staying at home and dealing with the crazy hours and the crazy schedules and running around with the kids and doing all of that to support your police officer because you love him or her. Yes, keep doing it, but I'm not gonna lie, it sucks. Um, the last minute trainings, yes, I got dinner because you gotta go do this. Yes, I got the kids because it's a very fast paced life. So for me, thriving is being honest about all those things. Like, no, you're not crazy for being worn out. You're not crazy for being pissed that he's yet signed up for another training when you guys were supposed to do this. You're not crazy for feeling that way. It's what you do with it, you know? Um, Acknowledge it. Acknowledge the feeling. You want to feel angry, and then gather yourself and come up with a plan together and turn it into something healthy. You want to be sad about it, cry. That was the biggest thing I learned. Feel whatever you're feeling at the time. Don't block it. It doesn't mean that you're going to stay in it. Feel it and then let it go. Turn it into something else. Um, so thriving for me is being honest, being authentic, is sharing everything that I've gone through in my life in hopes that other people can connect with it and other people can go into a healing journey. I just found out uh, a few weeks ago that after I posted my reel, the chief of the department I work for is going around saying that she feels sorry for me. She feels sorry for me because I'm so bitter. I'm so bitter that I had to post that reel. And at first it upset me. Um, and then I thought, seriously, a 30-second video is going to make you feel that way and is going to make you say my name? Well, at least you're saying my freaking name now because for a long time you wouldn't acknowledge it. And guess what? I'm going to be real about that too. Because I know you're not the only chief talking crap about their officers or former officers. So now I'm going to talk about it, you know? So I share all these things not to promote people being angry or for encourage them to be bitter. No, I've said it all along. Be better, not bitter. The fact that you're sharing your story doesn't mean that you're bitter. Now, if you are, then go do the work, girl. Go figure it out. If you're angry and you're sharing stuff out of anger, go figure it out. Because at the end of the day, the one that's getting drained is you. The one that's going to bed upset and waking up upset is you. The energy that you're requiring to feel all that anger and all that bitterness is affecting you. It's not affecting anybody. That's not going to make a difference. You're just killing yourself over something that they don't even care about. So that's thriving for me now in law enforcement family is being authentic, is being honest, and don't be scared, or be scared but still do it. You don't know what's gonna come out of it, you know? So that's where the thriving came in for me, after the healing and just sharing more of myself and being more authentic and telling people like, hey, I also go through this, you know, and it's okay. Um, so yeah, that's where it's at for me.
Yeah. Girlfriend, you are bold, you are brave, you are courageous, you are so many things. I I hate to hear that you experienced what you did and that it was eerily similar to mine in many
Yeah.
ways. Um, but I think you agree that talking about it is the way to bring it to light, which is
Mhm.
why I decided to write my book. My book
Mhm.
was also a part of my healing process and processing everything that happened and putting it on paper, and
Yeah.
finally reading it back after I had written it. But there's validation in hearing other people's stories. And I'm sure you've already said it. You've validated many from telling your story. I've had others tell me that I've validated their challenges and their stories too, just reading through the book.
Mhm.
So I guess that lesson for anybody out here listening is, like you said, be scared, but do it anyway. If it's on
Yeah.
your heart to do, stand up and do
Yeah.
it. You're not stuck. You'll find your way through it
Mhm.
because nothing. I mean, everything's temporary. It might seem like it's permanent in the moment. And it's really easy to get stuck, especially in those situations with the blinders on, where
Mhm.
you feel like everybody else has control of everything around you, when really that's just the environment that you're in.
Mhm.
You really have that control to do what you need to do
Yeah.
so that you can thrive in your life and pave your own way.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for the books that you sent me. I had a girl reach out to me. She's still an officer and she's battling her own process right now, and she reached out to me, and um I said I need your address because I need to send you this book. You have to read it. She's in the thick of it right now. And I was like, oh my gosh, if I would have read your book at the time that I was going through it, it would have looked a little different for me. My process would have looked a little different for me. So I was like, I have to mail you something, just like please. She was on Facebook, and Facebook is a completely different animal. It's a lot of disgruntled old people. I Yeah, no. And I said, go follow me on Instagram, girl. You will be surprised the amount of support and the amount of LE community that are there and are being honest and are speaking about things. It's a completely different world. So she did, and I was like, I have so many profiles to send you on Instagram. So I was like, you need to listen to this podcast, and I'm gonna mail you this book, and I'm just like trying to tell her because I want her to realize that it's not what other platforms portray, you know. And there is a lot of support and a lot of community. So I was like, I have this extra book and I'm going to send it to you. So thank you for sending that. I'm about to mail it out this week to her so she can, you know, go through her process a little bit, maybe a little lighter, you know,
Yeah.
because it definitely could have helped me at the time, for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, where can people find you if they would like to reach out to you to chat or to order your merch or just follow along in your journey?
So again, I am on Facebook, but I forget I have Facebook, and I'm on there, but I'm always on my Instagram, which is BFC underscore apparel underscore. Um, and my website is bfcapparel.com. So if you don't have social media, you can just go straight to the website, and just email me if you have any questions. A lot of the stuff that I do is now made to order because I've given my clients the freedom to change whatever they want at this point. So it's pretty cool. So if you don't have Instagram, you can just go to my website and there's a link at the bottom where you can just email me. And yeah,
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your time.
of
Um,
course.
hang out for me real quick while we wrap this up. For you all listening, if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, please reach out to either one of us. I just thankfully put up my own website this week. So I have all my information officially. I did it by myself. I'm so proud of myself that I figured out technology, and I know you know the struggle of that as a small business solopreneur. Um, www.50fierceandfit.com/info is where all of that is at. So you can find out where to find me through that page instead of trying to mill through social media of all the different platforms and figure out find people. Um, thank you so much, Bernice. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you being here. We're here to help you all as we need. Until next time, take care, stay safe.